"Can I hold the boy?" Bridget asked the woman minding the pet store. "No, take the girl," Jan interjected. Of all the Griffiths' many dogs, all but one had been female. Jan wasn't keen on taking another dog home, but she knew the odds were already stacked against her. At the very least, they should stick to the gender they were used to. Dave always believed that female dogs had a better nature than male dogs. "And besides," he would say, as if it couldn't be more obvious, "they don't pee all over everything like males do." Bridget picked up the sleepy female puppy, who by this time was shaking. She was a really scared little dog, Bridget remembers. But Bridget held her and stroked her under the chin and calmed her down. The pup was soft and warm, with piles of white-grey fur flecked with blue. She had a slightly upturned nose, like the nose of a little child, and she smelled of dog biscuits and freshly laundered towels. Once calm, the puppy turned her head to Bridget and licked her face. "Deal breaker, absolute deal breaker," Bridget says now. Bridget put the puppy back down in the window, and mother and daughter walked outside to discuss what getting a new dog was going to mean for the family. Outside, as Bridget worked up every angle to convince her mum that there was no reason not to get a puppy, the tears started to fall. If it took a mini tantrum, Bridget was prepared to go there. She had been looking at these puppies for weeks, just dying to take one home. She practiced the age-old refrain. She would feed it and look after it, she promised. All the other Griffith children had had their own dog. It was her turn now. Jan wasn't fooled. She knew her theatrical daughter could lay it on thick when she wanted something. Bridget was being over the top, but Jan couldn't help sort of admiring her for it. This girl knew what she wanted and how to get it, and in fact, Jan didn't need a whole lot of convincing. She was already smitten with the tiny pups. Jan agreed to go back into the pet store and let Bridget hold the girl dog once more. Looking on as Bridget nuzzled with soon-to-be Sophie, Jan clasped her hands over her mouth in adoration. The girl and the puppy looked like they belonged together, and clearly they were both falling head over heels. Bridget handed the puppy to her mother, and just like that, another Griffith woman fell hopelessly in love. Jan told the girl in the store that they were coming back for the female puppy and entreated her not to sell her, but they all knew that the clock was ticking. The rest of the litter had already gone, so there had to be more Bridgets out there trying to convince more Jans that now was the time for that new puppy. Jan just needed to clear it with Dave, who was over at the offices of the family electrical business. When Jan called to say they needed to talk seriously, Dave became pretty nervous. Dave Griffith was a broad-shouldered man in his early 60s who wasn't generally the nervous type, but it wasn't often that he got a call from his wife of 30 years announcing that they had to have a serious talk. He suddenly worried. Was she going to leave him or something? He couldn't really believe that there was anything badly amiss, but then again he had just bought the family's first boat, Honey May. She was a 32-foot third-hand motor cruiser with very tight living quarters, 2 tiny bedrooms and a saloon with faux leather upholstery. Not exactly a yacht, but still. He'd bought the boat so that he and Jan could enjoy their later years out on the ocean, fishing, whale-watching, and relishing the marine paradise that their tropical town afforded them. But when he got the call to say that Jan was on her way over, he began to wonder if this latest toy might have been enough to throw Jan into a bout of wifely discipline. Dave was mistaken. Jan pulled up to the office of Dave Griffith Electrical Services and, leaving a highly excited Bridget in the passenger seat, walked into Dave's office, white pants very crisp and a resolute expression on her lips. "We're getting a new dog," she announced. Dave frowned, then raised his eyebrows. Relief flooded through him as he realized that there was no drama after all. Yeah, whatever you want," he responded to his own relief, "as long as you're not divorcing me." Jan threw her husband a puzzled look as she hurried out of the offices. She was desperate to get back to Caneland. Bridget, who had climbed out of the passenger seat and was looking over the car, impatiently scanned her mother's face. Jan was smiling, and Bridget knew it was a yes. She let out a whoop and jumped back into the car, which sped back to the shopping centre. Bridget was sick with pure tension. If someone had bought the puppy in the meantime, she was just going to die. Jan parked the car and Bridget ran ahead. There in the window of the store were the two puppies. The girl was sleeping again, and the boy was bouncing around, paws pressed to the glass. He probably recognised Bridget by now, for all the time she'd spent fawning over him. As Jan was inside paying for Sophie, Bridget peered once again through the window that had lured her here every day for months. She almost couldn't look at the boy puppy, who was still staring up at her with his tail wagging. Bridget felt terrible about leaving him in there, alone, his little white face turned up to hers. She wasn't going to push her luck, though. After all those years of dreaming about a dog of her own, and all those weeks of visiting the litter of puppies, having just managed to convince her parents that it was time for a new dog, she wasn't going to argue about which pup. Bridget was beside herself with happiness, and nothing could dampen her mood. She was going to be the best dog mum ever to Sophie, the very girly name that was the first to come to mind as she walked out to the car with her new best friend.